things Halloween. This is Hauntformer, and ahoy, mates and mateys! Welcome to the first haunt vlog about Port Chum, my haunted bay ride for Halloween 2023. The road, or rather the route to the sea. I'm trying to think of a nautical theme. I'm wearing the nautical shirt, I got the nautical stuff, okay? Because we're doing oceanside horror, which is very different for me. And the road to get here has been interesting. So last year, my friend Austin, who has worked on previous short films with me, if you go to my channel you can see some of our horror shorts that we've done. Austin had a friend David Koning, who runs DK Farms and Gardens, a place located in Clearwater, Florida, Largo, Florida area really, in the Tampa Bay area. And he has this farm, family farm, for many, many years, and he had this idea of doing a Halloween event, and so Austin recommended me. Well, at the time, I was going through schooling, which I still am, and I also was writing my first book, Kamuffins, shameless plug, and I just was like, there's too much on my shoulders at the moment. I don't feel like I can handle the responsibility of starting a Halloween event. And so I recommended my friend Jaden over at Jaden's videos. If you don't follow him, you definitely should. And Jaden had the first year of what he called Fearville, which is essentially this haunted attraction at the farm. It was a haunted house, there was a hayride, and there were some other events, a show, and a couple of things going on at the farm. It was a really cool event, I think, for families and just people of all ages to come and enjoy Halloween. And I did work at the hayride. I was a scarecrow as a scare actor. And then, of course, I went on by myself last year and did Cotton County Crematorium in the garage that I've been doing the same haunted house in for the past 10 years. I started in 2012, and I started Hauntformer in 2013, so there was one missing year where you didn't see it, and I'm glad you didn't because it was really bad. But, you know, you have to start somewhere, and I've been doing the same one. Hollow Zero fell through, and there was one skip year, so in total I think I've done 8 haunted houses now, maybe? Somewhere around there. And I've done all different kinds of themes. I've done aliens, I've done an amusement park, I've done clowns, which is shocking for a lot of people. I did a nightmare theme, and of course last year I did kind of this gothic crematorium. And I was like, where do I go from here? Do I keep doing the same thing? And I thought about it, and I said, you know what? I'm going to join forces with Jaden at Fearville. And since I already knew the location and everything, I started thinking up ideas of what to do. Because it's at a farm, I think the obvious reaction was to do something farm-like, and that was my first idea because I've never done a farm and I love the aesthetic. Scarecrows and pumpkins. I was thinking of doing a mutated pumpkin patch at one point. That was a fun idea. But I was like, I'm not sure. I wasn't positive. And there's this water behind the farm that you can really easily see. And I thought, you know what? I've never seen like a sea monster haunted house, especially in our community here on YouTube. So I said, you know what? I think I'm going to do something nautical. I do live in Florida after all, and we have a lot of nautical things, but it's more tropical and pirates. I wanted that New England kind of scare with a little bit of Lovecraftian influence. And so Port Chum was born. Called Port Churn, turned to Port Chum after the waters began bringing people back to life. Well, it started with the chum and the fish and eventually turned into people. There's a whole lore. You can check out that video when it comes out. It might be out at this point, but it's a lore video explaining kind of the backstory of this haunt, which originally was going to be a haunted trail. And I said, you know, it's cool, but I really think the water gives so much more access. Plus, at the time, we had another gentleman who joined us, Wyckoff. You can check him out on YouTube as Wyckoff's Adventures. He went on board, and he was going to do a haunted trail. So we have a haunted house, a haunted trail. Where does that leave me? The haunted hayride, or as I'm calling it, the bay ride. And so I began to redesign my initial designs of the trail into this hayride, which is basically like a 7, maybe 8, 9 minute long ride attraction experience that takes you by the bay and loop around and back to the farm. So it actually goes kind of beyond the farm area a little bit. And last year, Jaden was very busy doing Fearbrook Asylum, and it turned out great, by the way. So he didn't have a lot of time to work on the hayride, which is understandable. I want to give more attention to it since it's my one thing I'm doing this year and make it the best hayride that I can. I've never done a hayride before, but I've always enjoyed the concept and the experience. To me, haunted houses, haunted trails, and haunted hayrides are all kind of one and the same thing when it comes to this craft, this hobby, this profession. And so, I have been designing plans for Port Chum. I'm going to show you a little bit of the land, of the DK farm, of kind of the hayride, I don't know what you would call it, the tractor, the unit itself, really. So you know what people are going to be in when they look out and see Port Chum along the coast. But I'm really excited about this haunt. It's very different for me, and it's going to be very different for you in terms of these vlogs. I've already started building many props and many parts of the costume. I've bought in masks, and I just have a lot of things to show you. So I needed to get this video out, and I apologize if it's a lot of talking, but let's get to the visuals. So Fearville, this Fearville event at DK Farms and Gardens in Largo, is one of the few, if only, events here in Pinellas County, the peninsula on the peninsula of Florida. Beyond us, there is Sir Henry's Haunted Trail, which is a very popular event here. We also have, of course, Hallows Scream at Busch Gardens, and just beyond that in Orlando, of course, Halloween Horror Nights. So to me, it's a privilege to be a part of the Florida haunt scene in some way. When it came to doing Port Chum, to do this hayride, bayride thing, there were logistical problems that I ran into right away. Because in a haunted house, you have walls, you have opportunities for scares and for set pieces. In a hayride situation, everything's going to be seen basically from 360 degrees. There's no place to hide, really, out there. And the major logistical issue for Port Chum is I actually, because of the nature of the event, it being outside, where it's located, I have to move things to their locations each night. I believe Fearville's like 6 or 7 nights. So each night I have to place the props and the lights back up, which means it's going to be a hassle for me, and that also means I can't have any permanent structures, which makes this tricky, but we're going to work through it, because like I said, we find a way. I did do some drawings, because I always do these drawings. Luckily for you, I digitized them, so they'll pop up on your screen as I talk about this stuff. The first is actually the entire layout of where the hayride goes. You start at this little shed that David has there permanently. I'm calling it the tackle shop for the case of Port Chum. And you'll notice there is a windmill right beyond the tackle shop, which is a good place for this hayride to loop around when it's leaving and coming back in. You go through a gate to the waterside area. You'll notice I did mark a few trees, because those are good key markers to know where I'm at spatially in the area, and also because they're opportunities for people to pop out of or props to be behind. You'll see what I mean in a second. They go up to this kind of warehouse area back there. I'm calling it the factory. It's like the fish factory in the context of Port Chum, but it's this big building. When they get up by there, it loops back around and comes back down. You'll notice that a big chunk of the area is devoted to the water, which obviously I can't put any things out there. I'm tempted to have a monster coming out of the water, building some kind of waterproof creature. We'll see if I actually get to that. I really want to try it, but, you know, I have submechanophobia. I'm just kidding, but I really would love to do that. This second drawing is going to show something really important for Port Chum, the actors. Because when you reach a certain point in the hayride, the bay ride, power becomes a problem. We get too far away and the wires and everything, the adapters, becomes a hassle. So besides lighting, the further you get away from the kind of core area with that shed, the less and less I can rely on plug-in stuff. We had this issue last year, I remember. And so I'm really relying on actors. You'll see in a future installment, I got these things, I think they're called the talk box, or the boo box, the spook box, the scare box, whatever. There are these speakers, and they're really cool. They have a similar thing on frightprops.com. You can clip them to the actor, and it has a little trigger, and it produces this loud sound that you can actually pre-program. So you'll see me in a future installment picking the sounds for the sea monsters and whatnot. But each actor is going to have a speaker. I'm tempted to give some of them flashlights to actually have their own light for themselves, or some kind of lighting rig so people can see them easily in the dark. But actors are going to be very important for Port Chum, and as of right now, I would like to have 4 actors. As you can see on this image, I have some designs as to each character, actors 1 through 4. The first is kind of this traditional fish-looking character, most likely myself, because I will be one of the 4. The second is the angler fish that you probably saw in the trailer for Port Chum. The third is a squid character, whom I would love to design some extended arms with little tentacles and suction cups. If I can do that, you'll see that in a future vlog. And finally, the big guy at the end, Actor 4, is going to use that inflatable suit. That pumpkin suit I got a few years ago, or the vampire from last year. I'm going to rehaul the pumpkin one into a giant sea monster, because that way they'll be able to look right in at the people on the hayride, and I just think that's going to be awesome. This is the hayride, and that's Jaden's videos, from Jaden's videos. This is the hayride unit, the trailer. You have the windmill there. So last year when I was scare acting for the hayride that Jaden did, it was a different unit, it was lower, and there were more places to jump onto. There is this, so there is one opportunity for a scare actor to jump. These I can jump, probably not very good with the camera in my hand, but still get up there. But also I have to keep into account people's backs are right here and their hair. Then you have this, which is probably going to be the best one, because I can literally jump up here and scare people. It won't be just me, but I'll be putting in maximum effort to my scares. Also, in a future vlog, I'll show you the scare boxes that I bought, the talk boxes that will clip on to the actor, and they can press a button and a loud noise will trigger it. The other thing to keep in mind too are the placement of the props. I want Deathstalker high enough so he can shoot fog that smells like dead fish into the hayride. But props like Bog Zombie or Flesh-Eating Zombie or any of those guys are going to have to be further back, so when the hayride goes to and from, they can see it from a good distance. So if I get back on here, it'd have to be, just saying, if I was a person looking out here, I'd say it should probably be a little bit closer than where that windmill is. So I'd say that's about maybe 10 or so feet from the unit. But yeah, that's going to be cool. So this will be where the tractor is. So I'm not going to have anyone try to scare from this direction. But we have that area, any of the sides, and that area. These two are going to be the most popular scare jumps that we'll have. Initially, Port Chum was supposed to be over there as a walk-around trail. You would walk around that thing and then walk through those like stables and stuff. But in truth, it makes a lot more sense to be this bay ride thing, because there's a dock There's also a wooden shack, which that will be the bait and tackle store. You'll see the build of the sign, and I have some other stuff I want to put there. Something needs to go out here too, but I'm not sure yet. And really something needs to go probably right here. You know, I have some fish crates. Again, another vlog on those. I have fish crates, and I'll have some nautical netting. Something's going to go here, and then this is where they will load onto the unit, but this really works well with the theme. Then from there, they loop around the windmill like that and go out that fence. It'll take you down, across, down by that water, and then back this way. That down there is the entrance. Along this way, there's going to be various like farm-related props that Jaden has, because we are at a farm. Here is going to be his haunt, which is Oddville. Check out his channel to see the behind the scenes of that haunt. But there will be like 2 tents here and a freak show and all kinds of stuff. And then here is going to be a scare zone, like an apocalyptic type thing. And it's going to go this way through here, which he did a Christmas haunted trail through here last year. I got to be Krampus, and that was kind of fun. So you go through here. Is it going to end here?
No, it's going to end.
Oh, over here?
After, so I have to put caution.
Okay. So it's going to go this way, because over here is where Wyckoff on YouTube, Wyckoff's Adventures, is going to have his hillbilly haunted trail. And then over there is where Port Chum is going to be. So if we go this way, you can see, oh look, the ponies. They think I have food. I'm sorry, I don't. Is this where Wyckoff starts?
No, it starts
Oh, there?
There, where the path is.
Oh, so okay. So that's where his hillbilly one will be. Right there. And then Port Chum's down there at the end is the hayride. So really, if you started at the front, you could technically go through the farm area, go into Jaden's circus, through the apocalyptic thing, go to Port Chum and go to Wyckoff's. You could just do a complete line and then exit the event. There will also be like music and cool stuff. So if you're in the area, come out and see it. This final drawing is perhaps the most important, because in this drawing, I have placed the lighting, the props, where the actors are going to go, and just overall the entire layout. This is really my most important blueprint for this haunted trail, hayride, bayride experience. You start at the tackle shop. That's the queue, the waiting line, which is cool to have one, and it looks like a dock, which is perfect. The tackle shop will most likely feature the Twilight Twitcher zombie, though that could change, and I'm going to dress him up, suit him up in a fisherman costume. And on the ramp, where you have to walk up to get onto the actual unit of the hayride, I'm going to have some nautical crates, some fishing crates, which I actually did build. You'll see a build of those soon enough. With Bound Corpse and Ancient Mummy, which is actually just a corpse. 2 corpses from Distortions, which I think will really set the scene well. They're very well detailed, so it's okay if they're close up to the guests, because they're going to see these bodies that will eventually, in the context of the story, be dumped into Port Chum. And then, right by the windmill, as they load in, they can look out and oversee the windmill. I'd like to have Limb Eating Zombie Boy, because I know he's returning. I'd like to get him to be out there, because 1, he's a good little zombie guy that I really like, and 2, he's battery operated, so that way I don't have to have any wires going underneath the hayride unit and those tires, the pesky tires. So once you go past there, you're going to notice coming up there's a beacon light. Doesn't have to go there necessarily, but I want something that has the feel of a lighthouse, a constant beacon of light surging across the entire land. That's going to really bring a nice atmosphere to Port Chum. And as you go through the fence, you're going to notice on the right-hand side, Actor 1, who is myself. I'm not going to be just there specifically. I'm really going to be anywhere from there over to where Actor 2 is. And I'll be the line greeter, essentially, before the ride takes off. I'm going to be in that area because in case there's something that I need to hear from Jaden or from David or whatnot, I need to be able to be accessible, and the further out you get by the factory and down where Actor 4 is, it's going to get tricky for me to run back and forth all night. So I'll be at the start of this area. Plus, I'm just a classic fisherman, so having that very iconic sea monster right at the get-go is going to set the scene. And speaking of setting the scene, we are going to have the Port Chum sign. I have this big wooden thing with this sign right behind me. You'll see a build of that. And our hanging dead mermaid, which I just was working on. You'll see, again, videos of all of these things I'm talking about coming soon. Hanging dead mermaid, and then just beyond that, I'd like to create some sort of dock or pier. Nothing crazy, just maybe a wooden, area for the rocking fisherman from Home Depot. Yes, I'd like to get that to be looking out over the water as he rocks. I don't like his light up eyes. I don't really care for the phrases, but I can mute him and unplug the eyes and just kind of have this rocking, creepy figure out there. I feel like that would be very effective. And honestly, people are going to naturally look at that movement, so they won't see me coming when I scare the Batukis out of them behind them. To the left side of the Hayride unit, there will be Bog Zombie. Not specifically right there, but somewhere on that side. I want to fill in that space, give them something to look at, and Bog Zombie is such a perfect character to be out here. Even last year, when I was doing the Scarecrow thing, I was just thinking, man, Bog Zombie is so perfect for this area. Literally, one of the main reasons I could do this haunt is because Bog Zombie exists, and I knew I would have another prop to fill it out. You'll notice there are these little things, these little circles with little rays coming out. Those are lights, actually. Floodlights, specifically, and spotlights. B is blue, and G is green. The color palette for Port Chum is blue and green. Very nautical, seaside types of colors. You can think of it as water and kind of algae if you want. Dirty water, moss, whatnot. Anyways, we have those lights. One will be coming from behind Bog Zombie, this nice blue, and then a green on Deathstalker, who I'll point out next, is behind the first big tree. Because Deathstalker is such a hulking monster, I need to hide or obscure him somehow for the scare. So he's going to go right behind that first tree. And I'm going to have this scented fogger, and I'll do a video of that. But the fog scents you can get online, I found a couple. One I think smells like dead fish, rancid fish. And the other smells like seaside, ocean, port. Exactly what I'm doing, essentially. So we're going to have a saltwater smell, a rancid fish, and I want him to shoot that smell right onto the guests as they come by. Kind of this big gust of fog onto the unit. I think that's going to be awesome. Then as you keep going, on the left-hand side is going to be Actor 2, our anglerfish character, with another green light behind him, or it, or whatever. When you get up to that left second tree, I'm going to have Flesh-Eating Zombie. He's static, unfortunately, but fortunately, because I don't have to plug him in, dressed in a fisherman costume, and he will be under that tree, and also, again, people will look at him and not see our anglerfish actor when they get scared. Then to the right, because I need something on that right side, we're going to have Smoldering Zombie, but in an entire scuba diver costume, which I'm really excited to get that put together. I have the mask. I need some of the other stuff. But we'll have a scuba diver, and he'll be actually on the water's edge, which is going to be very different. Actor 3, our octopus character, will be just between those two trees, can kind of hang out in that general area. And just beyond him, in front of the factory, I'd like some barrels, whether toxic waste or otherwise, just to have something in front of the warehouse and to show that this warehouse has maybe been polluting these waters, perhaps. Maybe the waters aren't magic, maybe they're just toxified. I don't know, you can make it up in your head, but I like having an ambiguous kind of source of these strange sea monsters. And then, as the unit, the Hayride, has to do its U-turn at the back there, that's where I want Actor 4 to come out of the woods and just really scare him. This giant, towering monster that can look right in. a great finale, even though we have to go all the way back through Port Chum. But whichever side the guest was on before, they're going to see the opposite side, and I think that almost makes the experience twice as long, really. Plus, our actors will scare them a second time on the way back before they reach the tackle shop, and if they want to ride it again, which they very well might, last year we had a lot of repeat customers, they can. Those are the overall plans for Port Chum. Please keep in mind, these things often change. But you have to go into a haunt, whether it's a haunted trail, a haunted house, or a haunted hayride, with good blueprints, with a solid foundation to make sure your ideas come to life. Or rather, death. Hey, what do you think about Port Chum? Are you excited to see all this play out? Stay tuned for more vlogs. They will be less talky than this one. I realize I've been diary of the mouth here, but I have to set the scene, give you context for what we're going to be doing for the next couple of months. So don't miss it. And remember, for all things Halloween, this is Hauntformer.